Hello everybody, Average Picker here. Real life lock picking stories. Now I know some out there in the lock sport community are actually locksmiths, so of course you get to practice, lock picking in the field quite a bit. For others of us though, not so frequently. Had a little interesting chance the other day at work though to pick a number of locks. And I thought that's what I would kind of tell you about because it was slightly interesting. Not unexpected or surprising, just slightly interesting. So at the Restore, I am starting to take over duties as kind of an assistant volunteer coordinator. So that's just coordinating the volunteers that are coming to volunteer at the Restore. And we have a little break room for them, and it's got a number of lockers in that break room. And over the course of the last 5 years, a number of locks have gotten put on the lockers and the keys have been lost. It's just, volunteers leave for the day. They use the provided lock, relock it, the key gets lost. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to get some of this stuff cleaned up and kind of a fresh start. Now, normally bolt cutters are the answer. They just bolt cut them off. And that tells you how low of a priority task this is, because if they're just bolt cutting them off and some of these locks have been on there 5 years, this is not something they want a whole lot of time thrown at or they're too worried about. But I thought I can use this opportunity to pick some locks. Now, these locks ranged in variety. Mostly, this is kind of what you're running into. A lot of Master 3s, a couple of those guys, and a few American 1100s. And which is interesting. The Restore used to have a lot of American 1100s that they supplied to volunteers to lock things up. They also lock the gates with these, things like that. It's a solid little lock. So picking them in real life, what happened? So they're on lockers. So, the setup on a locker, it's just generally hung on a little tab like that. You've got to flip it up. So you're going to be picking a little bit sideways maybe. You can kind of maybe twist it around a bit. A couple of the Master 3s I had to kind of pick upside down, whatever. I'll start with the interesting tidbit here. We've probably all, at some point, picked one of these, and we've all probably wasted our money on these, so we know this is not a hard lock to pick. This is also the first of the locks that I took off of a locker there. Not this particular one like this. The one I did had a little bit larger shackle. That's neither here nor there. I picked this lock with 3 other people in the break room who I was actively talking to. So they were paying attention to me because I was trying to give them information they needed to know for volunteering. Topic keyway tensioned, picked it, and nobody realized I had picked it. Think about that for a moment. I mean, that should tell you a couple things. One, it should tell you how little we sometimes pay attention to what somebody is actually doing around us. You may, even if you're listening to them and looking at them, you may not be picking up all the details. That's also how easily this picked. I was able to pick this lock and people just thought I was down there and had just popped it open with a key. That is how quickly it went. And this is going to be a good segue maybe into an upcoming rant. I think this is truly a junk lock, which we all probably kind of knew, but we tend to toss that term around a little easily. And yeah, if you could pick this in front of 3 people and they don't realize you're picking the lock, there's a problem. The Master 3s, there was a couple of these on there. A little bit more of an issue picking these, surprisingly, or maybe unsurprisingly. At this point, I had attracted a bit of an audience, so you've got that added pressure. And a few of these have been on there, like I said, about 5 years. So one, it considerably was gunked up. It had that kind of old chewing gum feel on the pins. Sub 1 minute pick still, less than a minute. They were all pretty much open, each one. The second one had one pin that was a little bit stuck for whatever reason. As soon as it popped up, the rest of the lock fell open again, sub 1 minute. But people realized I was picking these at that point, and that's what kind of attracted an audience. Now, I don't have an example of it here, and I didn't really look too closely at it. There was one other master lock that did survive my picking frenzy, And that was because I didn't notice it. It was on a locker way down in the corner, had a box in front of it. So don't know how that one would have held up. Didn't really even look at what it was. It was just at that point, it was like, okay, there's other things to do than pick these locks. That's the one that got away. It was just hidden. So the 1100s on there, they held up. Yeah, probably unsurprisingly. I mean, we know it's a better lock. Let's not make any, we're not saying there's any surprise there about that at all. Now, again, it's an incredibly low priority task. So I probably, through 4 attempts at each one, I had about 3 to 4 minutes per lock. One of them, I was pretty sure it was about to turn over, but I got called away or something. And when you get called away, you've pretty much got to drop what you're doing and go. Sometimes it's something, like maybe somebody's holding a cabinet that's about to fall on them. So you want to get out there and give them a hand as quickly as possible. But yeah, they're still on there. And again, that's not a big surprise. Sometimes you can open these fairly quickly in a clamp, especially if you do a whole lot of them. You get like 10 or something of them, and you can really start cruising through them and get a real feel for them. But yeah, cocked up, trying to hold that tension, at an angle on a locker. Maybe more importantly, though, it was obvious I was trying to pick them. People were pointing and being like, "Oh, he's back there picking locks again." So drew some attention, even though I had just kind of gone back there in a few minutes that I had to spare. Yeah, so a bit of this video is probably like taking sand to the beach, and you're kind of wondering, well, we knew this already, right? What's the point? Well, we've got a little bit of real life confirmation, I guess, on some of it. But I think it's slightly interesting that, you could pick something like this without anybody even noticing. Step up a tiny bit, and it was starting to draw attention. Now, but at the point that it drew attention, I had already removed at least one of them. So it was like, so you're spending time over there kind of doing stuff. That in itself is going to just draw more attention to it. So, yeah, and, Lock Sport, we kind of spill over and we share some interests probably a lot in, the bypass tools, I think, are a good example, in just kind of general security. There's some interest there. And there's a social aspect to security, right? Security is more than just how quickly can you pick something. And so, that you could do something like this without trying to be covert about what you're doing. It's not being sneaky, not one bit, and nobody noticed. What happens if you throw a little bit of sneak into that? I suspect it'd be the same way with these guys, which, again, we know these are easy picks, right? We know these are beginner locks. That's not a surprise. But you can kind of get in there and do that right in front of people. I think that's where the interesting tidbit, I think, video worthy is. And as I said too, this may serve as a bit of a prelude into a wider, bigger rant coming soon. Not sure. That video is going to take a little bit of thought, just so it doesn't come off in the wrong way, I guess. And our 1100 did draw attention, but the point that you're having to spend any kind of, time in front of something that's going to generate. Now, you can see cases of maybe if you're using this on a bicycle out in public where people are just walking by, you'd be able to spend enough time down there because nobody is actively, I think, clocking the amount of time that you're down there. They're just walking by and strolling, and kind of glancing maybe. So you can eke some out of that, unless it's in front of a coffee shop or something. But every minute you spend, every second you spend in front of a lock is going to start to increase the odds that someone's going to spot what you're doing. And then it's just a matter of, do they care or not? Does it concern them? So yeah, there we go. Hope this has been mildly interesting. Yeah. In the meantime, you all have a good one.